Hello, hello, hello. Greetings, and welcome back to the Soul Citizens. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and I am joined today with my good friend and co-producer, the one and the only SeriousFun. How are you, my friend?
Well, listen, and you and I have been talking about it. The world is a crazy, crazy, crazy place. But guess what? Well, you and I can come together and we can have this conversation. And for a little moment, for a little while, we can escape into this world 930 years from now, even though I want to go now.
Oh, can I go and stay? Can I go and stay? Yes, I wanted to just go and stay. But
But I'm
yeah,
thankful to be here with you and with everyone else.
absolutely, absolutely. We hope everyone out there is doing well. Hope all of you all are taking care of yourselves. There's a lot going on, as you just said. We've got everything from the crazy weather systems that are coming through North America right now. For those of you, our European friends and our friends over in Asia and Australia and every place else, we've got some crazy weather stuff going on here in the States. So I hope people are staying safe. And obviously, we have some other issues going on here. And we want to give a special shout out and thoughts to our good friend Abdi Johan, who's a part of our team, who is living in Minnesota. And there's a lot of things going on there. So we just want to know that we're thinking about him and his family while they're out there. And anyway, we just hope that all of you all are doing well, that you all are joining us. Some quick shout outs to some folks serious. We've got the prisoners in the room. Citizen Ninja's here. Vengeful is here. Pops in Space. Artorius is here. Coffee is out there. And we've got some other folks over there. We've got some folks in YouTube. Essential Lassa, is that right? I hope I'm saying that right, is over there. We got some YouTube folks in here hanging out with us on a Sunday as well. So we want to give some shout outs to you all and say thank you for being here with us on a Sunday. You could be any place else, but you're here with us, and we thank you and appreciate that. Pops in Space kicking us off with the community sub. He wanted to see all he wanted to do was see James Brown come on screen. That's all he cared about, I think. That's what that was all about. I think he just likes seeing James Brown come out and do his split. Pops, thank you so much for that gift sub. We do
Essential Asa
appreciate it.
sounds like a really, really good coffee.
Yeah, it
Let me
does.
have let me
It
have a large
does.
essential Asa,
There-
please.
Hey, maybe you should trademark that before it gets snatched up by some coffee joint, right? And it does
Oh,
actually
Asa.
sound
He
good.
said essential Asa. All
Oh,
right, we got it.
Elasa, Essential Lasa. Yeah, Essential Lasa. I'll take Essential Lasa. That still sounds
Yeah,
good. I
yeah.
like it. Yeah, hope you all are doing well again. We started out last week. I think some of you all may have noted that we have changed our format for our show a bit for 2026. We're testing out some new things here where we're dividing our show into two halves. Our first half is where we do Star Citizen, or This Week in Star Citizen, as we call it, because they call it Star Citizen this week. And then we do our topic for the second half. So hopefully you guys are seeing that when we put our videos out, that's kind of what the deal is. So there's two videos now that come out instead of one on Monday and Wednesday. So if you see the first part and you say, "Oh, that's it," no, that's because there's a second show. So make sure you take a look at it if you missed the topic for that week. Some of you all may not have missed it, and it's not a problem. But there are two parts to our show now, and that way we kind of break the thing down so you don't have to sit for 2 hours. You can watch one half at one point and another, or you can just pick which one you prefer to listen to. So hopefully that format is going to go well for us, but we're going to test it out and see how it goes. But we appreciate you guys checking it out. Serious, before we get any further, how are you doing? You said you are doing okay. You just ready to go into this next verse for a little while, for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, and dabble a little bit on a topic that you and I have had plenty of conversations about, which is how people can, well, people having boredom with Star Citizen, right? I mean, there are folks
Yeah.
that are they get bored, right? They get
I
bored.
mean, on the one hand,
Hmm. On the one hand,
my blessed mother, when I was young and I would say things like I'm bored, she would snatch me up and look me in the eyes and say, "You're not bored, you're being boring." Right? You've got all these books and all these encyclopedias, and you got the library around the corner, and you can go outside. And she started naming stuff. She got to the 20th, 30th thing, and I said, "All right,
I get the
I get
point.
it. I get it." Right. And so, in a space like Star Citizen, the impulse I was raised with is to challenge that a little bit. But on the other side, there's some features that you've put together in this conversation today that are just true for some folk, right? And we're here to help. So we're going to talk about all that
Yeah, yeah,
and get into it. So
yeah. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff in relation to the topic for today. But before we get into that, we are going to jump into this week in Star Citizen this week, because there were quite a few things that did take place. As you guys know, we kind of wrap up the week, right? I know there's a lot of stuff that's talked about between Thursday and Sunday. So by the time you guys get to us, I'm sure you've seen other things that have been put out, both by CIG and other content creators. But obviously, we give our 2 cents, our spiel, as they would say, on what's going on in the Star Citizen community. And so we're going to kind of kick it off a little bit. This was a big one, my friend, and that was CIG released both their November and December monthly report, and for the Prisoners
absolutely.
Universe. And I have still not gotten through everything. I listened to a couple people who went through it. I started reading some of it, but there was just a lot of stuff there. So I really just kind of maybe want to focus in on your part if there was anything that really stood out to you, because again, this was 2 months worth of information, and some of it we kind of know because we experienced it, but there was also the behind the scenes stuff. So, anything in particular for you that you want to talk about?
Well, there's two areas. One is, AI content, tech and features, and game, what they're calling now game intelligence development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the way I like to look at those pieces is very iteratively, right? So when they talk about social behaviors in Levski, not only wild lines, but the way um, Nick specific voice packs, the way that NPCs are moving. Um, it's really, I don't think that you can look at any one, or this is a 2 month report. I don't think you can look at any one report though
Mm-hmm.
and really understand the progress of AI, right? You have to look at what they say that month and then go back and look at the previous 3, 4, 5 months to understand the iterative progress there. But there's been a lot of progress this year on AI, and we're experiencing some of it in terms of how we experience FPS combat.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's perfect, but we could feel the iterative improvements in game intelligence. They've tried some things like dropship replenishment and NPCs. Um, they talk in this month or these 2 months reports about something called AI skill extender
Mm-hmm.
being refactored
Mm-hmm.
and renamed AI motive, right? Which is a set of behaviors around um, the way in which characters and bosses, um, the conditions by which they make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all very interesting to me. The second thing is always ships, right?
Yeah.
Um, and one ship that I know others have been keeping an eye on is the Miss Hull B,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like it passed its white box review
Mm-hmm.
and moved into gray box, which is real progress, right? I'm going to continue to guess that we're going to see the Hull B, maybe not until IAE, but Hull B is coming this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's moved into gray box. And then the other ship that everybody's focused on, well, the ship and its variant, the Ironclad and the Ironclad Assault, um, have been in gray box and they're moving towards gray box review. And that includes that command module feature or that command module uh, gameplay set that's attached to the Ironclad, which is also attached to the Caterpillar. So that looks very interesting as well. What about you? Anything stand
You know,
out? I know you didn't get a chance to look at all of it, but
yeah, I don't want to touch on this subject in the sense of what CIG talked about, but I do want to go back to something that I remember when we first heard about CIG bringing some people in to work specifically on AI when there was the hiring that was going on, right? And the thing that I always worried about whenever I heard AI was it seems like everybody has their version of what they think AI is going to do. You know what I mean? Um, like, what does it mean for AI people to work on a game, a video game, right? In light of
right.
all that AI is right in our world right now. And so, and we all have our own ideas of AI in the sense of something that's, that thinks for itself and does its own thing. As I read the information, and particularly when you start talking about, what's going to happen in relation to NPCs, the impact that AI will have toward making the Star Citizen world feel real, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I remember when we didn't have any NPCs, right? When there was nobody other than us in the universe. And I remember how empty the universe felt. If you were around in certain areas, right? If you were in a spaceport, you were almost happy to see some other players that were there going to the kiosk and get things. And then I remember,
Or driving their little, what's that?
oh, the
PV.
PTV, yeah, the PTV or whatever, right? And then I remember when the NPCs did come into the game, right? When we first got them, and it was interesting. I remember the place for some reason did feel, for lack of a better word, lived in, but it also felt like you were just standing around a bunch of mannequins, right? And we went through our T pose years and our standing on the chairs years, right? And but I remember it felt good, and maybe it's because I knew where they were going, but it felt good that those bodies were there. And then as the AI became to start to actually interact and become much more consistent, no standing on chairs, no teeth, things like that. You still had glitches from time to time, but there was a feeling of life being breathed into the universe. And now, even more, they're taking it to this next level where we start seeing NPCs. We've seen them I live in Area 18, and when I come off the elevator and I see there's a worker there who's at a console with a tool thing, doing welding, or someone who's doing something on a keypad, uh, that feels good, right? But it's still a bit routine. I'm really curious to see what happens when there's the idea of what we heard years ago of NPCs who are
Yes.
literally going to work, getting on the tram with
Yes.
you, sitting in the restaurant eating. I'm looking forward to seeing when that's there, because the idea was that it would be not impossible, but you may not easily distinguish a player from an NPC in the game. And so,
Yeah, we got that tetanus shot of Tony Z way back in the day. See, that's our problem.
yeah, right.
Is is he hit us with the imagine
Hmm.
NPCs coming out of spawn closets,
Right.
that represent habs and going and doing a set of behaviors across the day
Hmm.
where you could really follow an NPC and watch them go to work, go to
Hmm.
lunch, come back to work, and
Yep.
then at the end of the day leave and go back into that spawn closet like it's their hab and go back, you know,
Exactly.
and we want some iteration of that because that's been on our mind. I agree with you. That's been on my
Hmm.
mind since
Hmm.
that presentation. It'll be interesting to see how much, I forget what it's called now, but it's called something different than Quanta,
Hmm.
um, in terms of the NPC behavior. Under Richard Tyre, they have a slightly different name for it. Maybe the chat can remind me.
Oh, we've
Um,
gone from what, subsumption, we've gone through all the different words and stuff,
yeah,
right?
Star Sim. I
Star
think. I think
Sim.
that's
It's
correct.
Star
Yeah.
Sim. It's Star Sim. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Star Sim.
it'll be interesting to see how different Star Sim just ends up being over the long term
Yeah.
from that vision. I don't think it'll be that different.
Mm.
There'll probably be some differences, and it'll be interesting to note those.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. So like I said, I'm sorry I went off on that, but I was just thinking
No,
about when
no,
you were talking about
yeah.
AI, that kind of really stuck with me, of watching the progression of what's happening in our universe with those and how it brings life to what's going on around us. The things that stood out to me were, there, and now, just to default to the easy ones, there was the gold standard work that's been done on the Hammerhead. You mentioned about
Mm,
the Hull B. That was another one. In fact, I was really surprised because remember when we first got the demonstration about the relays, they used the hammerhead, and I was really surprised that we didn't see that happen sooner.
right.
But still glad that they're going to be doing that. The whole B, definitely a whole lover. I'm happy to see that. I'm hoping before, I know you said IAE. I'm being extremely uh, copiumed or hopiumed that we actually see that one at Invictus,
Mm.
and then maybe the Galaxy would be later on this year. But that's because I just would love to see it. The whole B. I just would love to see it. But obviously, if it comes at IAE, that's fine. We know we had the rework done on the Aurora, bringing up the gold standard, which is we've talked about that already. Um,
I mean, the
uh,
Galaxy is a really good shout out
mhm,
because they have told us the importance of having a kit for a manufacturer,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
This idea that they have assets in the manufacturer's design style that they can call upon.
mhm,
And they say here in this report that the Galaxy has entered pre-production.
Right.
So if it's entered pre-production and we get it at IAE, that means that they have developed a ship pipeline that allows them to go from pre-production to a finished ship
Right.
in a certain amount of time,
Yeah,
right?
easily within a year to me, I think, based on how that
Right,
pipeline has moved from the Polaris to the Perseus in Galaxy, and each time they get better and faster, right?
right.
I think that's a good point. Two other points out there. One of the ones that have forgotten one. Some of you may have never even heard of it before, but one of them was the Grey Cat UTV. There are some
Mm.
people who still remember hearing about the UTV, so that one is in production. And also, even though they talked about it last year, they're still following up with the Kraken. The Kraken is also there. I am a bit surprised. I heard someone else say this the other day. I don't remember who I was watching who said this, but I felt the same way. I really was hoping that the Liberator was going to come forward once we started getting into these other systems. And I'm really surprised that that one. I mean, the Kraken's a monstrosity, and I get the fact that they're starting that direction, but I'm just really surprised that they didn't go with the Liberator and introduce something like that. But
Is that because, and other people have said this, is that because you think Kraken and Liberator are both carriers, and so carrier gameplay ought to come forward
it it,
together?
it just felt like maybe it's not. Maybe it is better to do the bigger one and go down this way. I just kind of thought that they would use, like a lot of times they would use like the smaller version of something as a test plate, and then they'd go a template, and then they'd go further. But then like with the Polaris, they did the Polaris first, and then they did the Perseus, and then they did the Galaxy. So maybe that's why they're starting
Yeah,
with Kraken. And I know the Kraken was a part of the whole ironclad, Drake thing that they said they were going to go into. So I get that. It was
right.
Anvil was not the next thing in line. But I'm just wishful. I don't own a Liberator. I just was hoping that the Liberator would have been that ship transport ship that would have kind of stepped into the thing. But
Well,
you know,
there is that ship kit thing, right? That
yeah,
was going to be my argument. You just touched on it, but it's also, I think the Liberator is gonna get bigger. I
it
think when
could.
you look at the concept art of the Liberator,
Hmm.
it doesn't look like it holds enough.
Hmm.
I don't think it'll get as big as a capital ship,
Hmm.
but I think it's going to get bigger than what it was.
Hmm.
And so I think they've seen that, and this is all speculation, right? But
Hmm.
that for me is, the same way that when they talked about the Perseus originally having size 7 guns, and then they looked around at everything else they had put in the game and said, no, we have to make these guns bigger, and they
Hmm.
made them size 8s.
Hmm.
I think they've looked around at the game and said, we this may have to be bigger. The Liberator was conceived not too far after, you know, Chris Roberts had just come off the idea that the Constellation would be the biggest ship we would fly.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
So things have changed a lot.
yeah.
Drakazad, thank you for the gift sub.
Thracazogs. Hey, good to see you, Thracazogs. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting. All right, well,
yeah.
it's an idea. Okay, well, let's move on because I know we've got some stuff we want to watch and talk about today too. Also, in case you missed it, was done this year. For those of you who don't know what this is, I will read it to you, because some of you know what it is and some of you may not. In 2025, the edges of the verse expanded with the arrival of the Nyx system. Chart a course on this hard, is that right? Yeah. On this
Hmm.
hard won frontier, and to be ready for whatever stands up your way in last year's formidable release lineup. Upgrade now to new ships and vehicles from 2025, January through October releases, excluding the Aegis Idris P, the Argo Atlas GO, with select limited time Warbond offers, plus explore paint packs to customize your fleet. Okay, so interesting thing here. Basically what this is, gang, is ships that got released last year. They for a limited time. If there's one that you missed, you didn't get a chance to get it because you thought about it, you waited, or you wanted to wait till IAE, or it's a new year and you've rethought your fleet, whatever the case may be. This is opportunities for upgrades mostly. Okay, obviously that's the thing that a lot of people do. They melt something, melt a couple things, upgrade to something else. Here's my
Yeah,
question to you.
and or your buddy was tied up or wasn't right. The timing wasn't right,
Right,
and CIG recognizes they don't want timing to be the main factor. So here's just another cut at it.
right. So historically, um, there were two major times of the year where most of the people who've been in this game any amount of time would wait to do a ship purchase. Invictus in May, which was literally, focused on the military ships. But a lot of people, if they really wanted a military ship, that was the time to, because certain ships came up during that time period. But IAE in November was the second one. And a lot of people preferred waiting for IAE because it was offering the 10 years of insurance. And usually at IAE, 90% of the ships are available, if not 95% of ships are available. But last year, CIG's cadence changed toward these ship sales going on more frequently. Now, there are some people who will say, well, CIG's just trying to get money. I'm not saying that's not the case. But I remember many of those same voices years ago saying, CIG, stop having these annual things, just put the ships on sale all the time, right?
Uh-huh.
So, my question to you is, how do you feel about these ship sales that, before we used to have to wait months sometimes, right? You had to wait for Alien Week, or you had to wait for Coramore, right? Something like that to happen before a ship sale would come. And even then, it was ships that were limited to those particular themes. How are you feeling about these? Like every month, there's a rotation of ships that are pretty much on sale for the month of January, February, March, April. Do you think that kind of meets somewhere in the middle of what people were asking for? Is it too much, too little? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think, we there has to be a sales strategy for the game to continue,
Okay.
right? Um, so let's just start there, right? With understanding that.
Mhm.
That being said, I think this is a lot more flexible and available to the players in different ways than the previous strategy, which was feast or famine to a certain extent for everybody, right? Not only for CIG, but for the player, not only for the players, but for CIG, right?
Mhm.
You had these two big bumps, right? When you could use some of the lore in game, Coramore, Stella Fortuna, this idea of Alien Week and the tradition therein, to have little bumps of little types of ships throughout the year. And then, that almost, every ship is really available at once a year in November, right? So, yes, there could be a model where everything's available all the time. Um, I understand the marketing and the creation of scarcity. Um, and and the idea of make it important to some extent to be paying attention to the game environment in and out of the game. Um, as a player, my raw sensibility is, it would be I want lifetime insurance available for ships all the time forever, right? But that's not the model, right? And that's never been the model, right? And so I understand it. I think this is I wouldn't say it's a meeting in the middle. I would say it's an improvement of the framework in ways that recognize the interests of CIG to maintain an ongoing concern and enterprise and the idea of making ships available to us, right? So again, the way I look at this particular one, the in case you missed it, is exactly what I said, right? It's like, oh, some people around the holiday season, their money was tied up in other stuff for the holiday season. But now, a couple weeks later, maybe they got some,
Yeah.
just let's give them another opportunity, right, to gain access. So
So let me ask you this question: are you affected at this stage in the game when these sales come up? Whether it's a subscriber of the month sale, whether it's a sale like this, uh, do you have a FOMO meter? I mean, are you compelled to buy, or does it not even phase you, or do you not pay attention? Do you double back and look? Does it make you go back and say, well, maybe I will melt this, or well, maybe I will spend another $120? Where are you at? This is just you personally. I'm just curious.
yeah, me personally, it's interesting because everybody in my house has an account, right?
Mhm.
But me
Wait
personally,
a minute, did you make the accounts for
I
them, or did they make the accounts?
I made them for them, right? Here's
Okay, okay, that's
instead
good
of
to
instead
know.
of my last will and testament, it's my last account and investment. Uh,
Okay.
but but uh, but for my account personally, um, I'm also a subscriber And so subscribers, when new ships come out, we gain access to them for about a week,
Right.
right? And so I get to really test whether I'm interested in the ship or not, right? And so the FOMO is sort of mitigated by the idea that I get to get in it, right? And
Okay.
yes, I'm aware that the ship's probably going to be nerfed from its original stats, or there's going to be some sort of change, right? But I still get to get in it. Um, I'm looking at Admiral Kusanagi in the chat. He's safe out there, bruh.
Oh yeah, really.
Please,
Ooh, 19 degrees. Yeah, please be careful. I know he's
please,
been sick all weekend. Yeah, dude, take care of yourself.
yeah, please be safe.
Hmm.
Um, but I think about it in the context of folks that I've brought into the game, family members that I brought into the game, whose accounts are much smaller, much
Hmm.
more recent,
Hmm.
much less fleet,
Hmm.
right? Um, and they don't really have I have a universe of ships that are attached to me now that are sort of represent how I want to be in the game. So the FOMO is much less. Whereas, my younger son might look at something and go, "Hey, Dad, what is that?" Right? Maybe I want to get into that, and you have to go, and then you have to walk him through it
Hmm.
in a different way, right? And the stuff that's available that happens across the year, I think hits him harder
Hmm.
than it hits me. It hits me the way it used to hit me years ago,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so I do notice the difference, right? When you sort of have gotten your account to where you want it, I don't really feel that. And then if something comes out from a FOMO perspective, like I said, with that subscription, I'm able to get in it
Hmm.
and really see if it is what I think it is. And it's not just the it's not just Star Citizen's commercial that's
Hmm.
occupying my mind. It's like, oh, the way this really feels and sounds isn't quite what I would want, right? So or it is,
Okay.
so
Okay.
how about you?
It don't phase me. I've been
He
around too
said
long.
he
I could
said, let me
care
make it
less.
plain.
I don't care if they say 20% off. I could care less. There's nothing that draws me at this point. And a lot of it is, the FOMO dynamic is slightly different now. And I've shared this before. In the past, there were no opportunities to get ships other than to decide to say, hey, I want to buy this particular ship, right? But
Right.
now there's rentals, there's in-game purchases. In fact, I just melted some stuff this week. I melted 3 ships this week because I was
Walk them
like,
through it, Griff. Walk them through it. Tell
well,
them
well, well,
all
well
about
yeah,
it.
I'm okay. I was going through my fleet, which I hadn't done like really paid attention, but I had like 3 things in there. And I think you guys know I've said this before that I have a certain limit on how much money, like if it's less than this, I don't buy it. So I had 3 things in there. One was like a Pisces C8. What was it? It was a Pisces C8R. A No, it wasn't a raft. Oh, I know what it was. It was a hull A and a hull B and a Pisces C8R, right? And I love my hull A, and the B's not out, and I love the Pisces C8R. But when I went and looked at what they, like to buy them in game, they're like a million. They're not that expensive, right? And I was like,
Right.
I'll get rid of these. I don't, I can, this is something I'll work for in the game. I don't mind earning the money for these. So I got rid of all of them. And of course, SeriousFun, I told him that I realized that one of the areas I want to play in the game is medical. And I thought I had a medical ship because I had these packages. And I thought the Cuddy Red I owned was in my package, only to find out or remember that the Cuddy Red was there because I had an Endeavor. So I didn't own any medical ships at all at that point. And
So then
so
you thought about the medical ship.
so needless to say, I the melt that I took from that, I just transferred it over and got uh, the Apollo. And of course, the RSI ambassador sitting next to me here was more than enthused. The fact that I once again stepped into the world of Robert Space
Welcome.
Industries. And so he
Welcome.
welcomed, that's the first thing he said, welcome to RSI. He wasn't going to let me live it down. But anyway,
But that's
um,
a really good ship. I like that ship a lot.
yeah. And
Even
yeah.
outside of my bias.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, but again, I mean, it wasn't because of this. It was just because I just happened to be looking at my fleet, and I said, "Wait a minute, I've got these ships in here." But I'm just kind of curious as to what you thought about this cadence now, because there were many people in the community who said, CIG, stop doing this FOMO thing. Just make ships available for people to buy whenever they want to buy them, you know. And it's funny that that's what a lot of people were requesting. And then there's another group of people who says, yeah, now they're just being money hungry. I'm like, okay, which way do we go? You know, I mean, you can't win either way, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, that's that. Let's move on.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just finish by
Sure.
saying, I don't think you can ever expect CIG to not treat themselves as a going concern that needs revenue, right? I don't know what the alternative would be that would sustain the experience, right?
Yeah.
I do think there's nuance in the community in that people go, it's not that, it's how they do it, right?
Yeah.
And like the devil is in that detail. Everything's about how things get done, right?
Absolutely.
But we have known for a long time that ships and ship sales and ship marketing and ship development and ship anticipation has been a major pillar in the growth of this experience, of this universe sim. And so it doesn't surprise me that they continue to feel out different ways to connect us to that. And like you said, we've got to develop some muscles and some skin to be able to really come at that in a way that's healthy for us too, right? So
absolutely. Okay. We had Inside Star Citizen this week, and it's only 8 minutes long. We're gonna watch it. I think we have enough time to watch it. And then we're just gonna come back and give you a couple comments off of it. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but in case you haven't seen it, or in case, sometimes you got to watch it a second time because there's stuff you miss. We're going to take a quick look at it. So let's do that.
Each year of Star Citizen brings with it a new beginning, including new content, new opportunities, and oftentimes a few new ways of doing things. It's an essential element of Star Citizen's DNA, where we don't just build the game out in front of everyone, we continue to review, refine, and redirect our efforts, as well as the very manner in which we make our games along the way. In 2025, this saw the biggest change to our development strategy yet, where new content rose to the forefront while feature work was allowed the time necessary to cook behind the scenes, where dedicated strike teams were formed to deal with the biggest issues at hand, and the patch cadence changed from once every quarter to once every month. It was an exciting year, and now into 2026, we continue our yearly evolution as we head into the upcoming Alpha 4.6. Now, instead of a patch every month or every quarter, this year we'll introduce a new bi-monthly patch cadence, which is one every 2 months for those of you who appreciate homonyms. No. That means that you're going to see big releases like 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 and the like in January, March, and May, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. And between those patches, we're going to try a new initiative that'll still deliver smaller chunks of in-game content to keep things interesting, like the recent pricing surge on commodities from last week. And in the future, new mission contracts, new loot, and even new spaceships, and all without the need for a big, mega, full patch release. It's an exciting experiment, and one that we're eager to undertake as we continue our journey to 1.0 with a year of patches aiming to deliver more feature improvements like inventory rework, crafting, which, if everything works out, should be in tech preview soon or by the time this airs, instancing, Genesis planets, and more, alongside the content that we showed at CitizenCon Direct, like Rock Cracker, Tactical Strike Groups, and Municipal Works. So, with all that said, let's go ahead now and take a look at some of what Alpha 4.6 has in store for us, and not just with its intended release next week, but throughout this February and into March. Up first, the local inhabitants of Levski are falling sick with a mysterious ailment called the People's Ailment, seemingly caused by the new strain of mold growing in the faulty air filters of Geisen Incorporated. Symptoms include coughing, chest pain, and fatigue. This mold is super resistant and forcing the free and independent people of Levski to reach out to the UEE for help. Now, it's up to contractors like you to race against the clock and save as many folks from fungal fatalities as possible. And, of course, pick up some rewards along the way. like this cool new medical themed armor set, med gun, ship paints, and more.
Thank you, Victoria. Good to see you.
And in feature work, the first iterations of cockpit light amplification are also rolling out for select spacecraft. It's an exciting step forward in addressing one of the oldest struggles pilots have when flying or driving around the dark side of our planets and moons. And like most new features in Star Citizen, this will continue to evolve, improve, and expand to additional vehicles in subsequent patches. And look at all the different colors. And speaking of the oldest struggles, the Aurora, classic ship from RSI, heart of our original crowdfunding campaign and most owned vehicle in the verse, is finally getting its gold standard pass in Alpha 4.6, bringing it to feature and function parity with today's latest and greatest for those pilots who enjoy flying a true Star Citizen classic. And alongside this, we're finally delivering many of those outstanding campaign paints to go with it, like the Pirate paint, the Operation Pitchfork paint, the South by Southwest 2015 paint, the Electro Hull paints, and more. For 4.6, these will be delivered exclusively to those OG backers who earned them by supporting the original campaign, but may become available in limited supply later this year if there's enough interest. I suspect you can let us know on Spectrum, Reddit, and social. And in additional content stuffs, those cool holographic skull helmets we came up with so long ago are finally being delivered to our development subscribers. I'm excited because I've been wanting to recreate that Skeletor meme on social with it since we first unveiled it. There should be memes here, unless we couldn't think of any. There's also offerings from everyone's favorite band who, look, it's the only Banu you know, technically, who has these nifty new armor and weapon variants available as well, and the debut of the upcoming RSI Hermes, which you'll see fully and learn more about next week. But as we said at the top of the show, 4.6 doesn't stop when it releases next week. That's because about 2 weeks after that, we'll see the unlocking of new faction-based introductory and advanced mining and salvage missions to better guide new players through the two popular professions, as well as provide additional opportunities to existing players. There's our annual Coremore event that encourages folks to spend their lives in the verse with someone special, and it arrives with a host of goodies to acquire. Red Festival returns with its super cool red and gold paints, as well as new decal or not variants for those who prefer a cleaner look to your spacecraft paints. Another limited time change to vendors like the recent pricing surge, but this time discounting vehicles sold through in-game shops.
Who's that spaceship mine?
And finally, another new ship with a familiar silhouette makes its debut weeks later in the 4.6 era. So what's it called and what's it do? Well, I'm not going to tell you, because I'm not sure we're getting away with that whole what's that spaceship mine thing. So come back in a few weeks to find out. Ultimately, 4.6 is the start of a new season of Star Citizen content that will continue to expand the story and gameplay of Nyx, the features and capabilities of the universe itself, and the continuing development of the project as a whole. And as far as shows like this are concerned, well, I'm happy to report that we're going back to weekly from now on. So whether that's ISC, SEL, BTS, or whatever a particular episode is called, we'll be back with something to share each and every week that we can. I've missed you. And one of you sent me a giant wooden hammer, which kind of feels like a threat. But I'm going to try my best. See you next week.
All right, my friend. Your thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot to have thoughts about. I mean, I know our upcoming schedule of shows, so I'm not going to go too deep into 4.6 features, other than to say I like when we get storyline and storyline experiences, because that is one of the features of being in an MMO RPG at a certain time that is interesting to me. You know, I came into Star Wars The Old Republic, for example, and there are people in that, Admiral Kusanagi, but a whole bunch of other people that I've met, who can tell you what it was like when this thing happened, right? They were there when, right? I was in Elite Dangerous when we took down the Thargoid Titans, right? So it gives you a sense of timeline and history that folks that are playing now will be able to say to folks 5 years from now, we were there when Levski started having problems with its air filters, or we were there when Dorit and ASD went down, when we first discovered the Yormandi, right? We were there when. And so it gives you a sense of time, space, and place, and I like that a lot. I'm also very interested in Lamp. The skull helmets is interesting because the skull helmets is reflective of what we just talked about earlier, which is you have people saying, well, why did they put the skull helmets out earlier? Part of that thinking is because Star CIG has in its ships sometimes a scarcity model, right? So people think that might apply to everything. But in this particular case, I think they hadn't developed the helmets yet. They weren't holding them back, right? They actually had not developed the technology to make them holographic and cool like the way they are, or at least the gold one is. I haven't seen the red one in game. And the only other thing I'll say is, when he said Spaceship Mon, it revealed my age, because I needed somebody else to tell me that was a play on Pokemon. I thought he was trying to do patois. Like, what's that, Spaceship Mon?
Yeah, it took a second for me too. I'm getting old.
I was like, I'm old.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, several things. I think when we ended 2025, one of the things that we had a question about was what would the cadence look like this year, in relation to updates, and whether or not CIG would continue its cadence with its production for subscriber shows. And so we got answers on this one. So last year we were about every 4 to 6 weeks. This year we're looking at about every 8 weeks, so every other month, which is a decent cadence to me, because the month to month, even though it was nice and fun, it was also in many cases just not ready. And it would usually take them a few more weeks to kind of iron out whatever the problem was from a patch. So giving themselves that breathing room to me is reasonable. And it also, versus the quarterly, to go by monthly, I think is going to be okay. I'm okay with that. As we lead up throughout this year to getting information again about what's coming within that 2-month period through ISC, SCL, whatever other shows that they decide to do, I think is also good, because the community likes those communications, even though we get newsletters and we still get information. Last year, I think we were down to like maybe 5 shows, 6 shows out of the entire year. And obviously we were spoiled. We're used to getting, 48, 50 shows, 36 shows a year. And so being able to go back to a cadence of at least, approximately, I don't care even if it's 24 shows. That's, to me, for the community's sake. I think the community enjoys having that level of communication. So I look forward to that. With the Spaceship Mon thing, I have mixed feelings. I know everyone is looking at the silhouette there, and there's many people who feel that it's, and not, I'm disagreeing, it's Argo, possibly a variant of the mole. To be honest with you, I don't want another salvage mining ship. And I'm a salvage miner. I'm a salvage miner through and through. I know CIG said that they want people to have as many options. They don't want to just have one salvager. They may create 6 different ones, because people have different tastes, different outlooks. Some people like things because of the aesthetic, or something along those lines, and that's fine. Believe me, I'm that same way. What I'm looking, and I'm not saying that this isn't the case. I shouldn't say that I don't want them to do it. I'm so hungry for the next career ship. You know what I mean? Like
the next career.
Right, but right, I'm saying the next ship that's leading to a new career, right? And
Right.
so if it's a scanning barge or it's a ship for mercenary work or just I'm looking for a new career to open up more than anything. And they can still continue to build those additional ships that for careers that currently exist. Mining and salvage are really the probably the most fleshed out careers in the game. And so I can understand them putting another ship out there. I'm sure if they put a mole variant of a salvager out there, people will eat it up. There will be some people who will, because some of us already have what we need, so we don't care. But right now, I would just love to see, and I know there's some other things coming this year, and that will probably touch what I'm looking for. But my excitement just isn't there right now. And will I get one? Well, if it's under a certain dollar amount, I'll earn it in game. I don't know if I'm going to spend the money on it because I have 3 mining ships now that I can't see where this is going to land in between any of those 3 mining ships or salvage ships, I should say. So I don't know. But anyway, that's my spin on the salvaging thing. I have 2 salvaging ships. I'm sorry, not 3. But that's assuming it's a salvager, and everybody feels it's a salvager based on the configuration of what they saw. I did like this thing about the paints for the Red Festival and stuff, that they're going to give options for having the logo on or off, because sometimes you like that gold and red, but you don't necessarily want to see the rat or the dragon or the rabbit on there. So I do, but some people do. But I do like the fact that that will be available for people who just want to have the color scheme and not necessarily have to have the logo for the particular festival, which I thought was really nice.
This is the year of Muad'Dib, so you get that rat.
Yeah, right. Get the rat, right? Yeah, right. And then to go back to your original point about the narrative, the episode with the spores, the issue in Nyx, I think that's interesting. We can have a whole conversation about this narrative of where CIG is going with narrative and how much of this is testing, how much it is here to give us those things to do, and then how much of this is actually really going to become a part of the canon and lore, because there are some people here who don't care about lore per se. There are some people who also don't care about canon, and I'm curious to see, and we'll have to think about this for a later conversation. In an MMO, I know there are people who play MMOs strictly for what's the activity or the action, but the backstory and all that other stuff, they could do without it. And then there are other people who come to those games looking for that. And so I'm really curious with this whole Nyx thing. I heard someone say, "Oh wow, this is going to be the big thing now, running around just picking up spores," right? I mean, that's how they look at it, right? There are other people who will look at it from an entirely different standpoint and actually be like, wow, there's this thing, the thing that I want CIG to do. And I know it is not easy, so I don't want to make it sound like it's an easy thing. But I said this when we did the other mission thing with the cargo, with the illness that was going around, with the regen thing. CIG, I want you to make whatever's happening in the world affect us, not just affect what's around us. It was nice to come into the hospital and hear the NPCs complaining about their insurance and whether their regen was going to work. I needed our regen not to work. I needed there to be a percentage of a chance that when I went in to regenerate, my regeneration was jacked up. Like I couldn't regenerate, right? Like maybe I could only regenerate 80%. Right? You know what I mean? Every time I go to the hospital bed, it would only put me at 80% because my regen was jacked up. I want to see stuff like that. I want to say that if I go to Nyx, if I'm not wearing the right helmet or something, I might get the contagion. That's what I want to see happen, because we're all running around fine, you know what I mean? And everybody else is falling apart. It breaks the immersion for me, but that's just me.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
That and
wait a minute. The prisoner said the people would think it's a bug. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Oh, they would complain too, right?
Hey, could you fix that? Y'all need to fix that. It's a bug. I agree. Right. You're right, prisoner. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, it says, and continue to make a universe big enough where people can opt in or out of these things, right? Mm-hmm. If lore explore is not your thing, there's other things to do, right? I remember that we were all into, I keep coming back to Elite Dangerous, but we were all into the Salome we were all into Distant Worlds. We were into the Titan Thargoid War. And there were people who were off in other parts of the galaxy who didn't care a whit about any of that.
Yeah.
And didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right? Did not have to.
Right.
And so continue to make a universe big enough where people can engage in that stuff if they like it or not. But to your point, I 100% agree with you. If you're going to do it, what is it? What are the consequences for me in doing it? Not that I run around as the invulnerable hero while this stuff happens. That does break immersion. So they ought to challenge themselves there.
Yeah. Remember when we were doing the cargo thing, when everybody had to do the cargo runs? Like, there's a lot of people who like being in Microtech, right? And there's a lot of people who like being in Hurston. But everybody liked the Hurston armor.
Yes.
Now, if the benefit was strong enough so that people would have fought for their planet, you would have saw that thing play out a little bit differently. You know what I mean? Because basically the Microtech people gave the winnings to the Hurston people, right? And so I would love to see that. I want the impact to be like that. I want my decisions to be made based upon the region of space I'm in, where I'm.
It was probably your people because the Area 18 armor was the wackest. So it's probably your people.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I wear my Area 18 peach-colored stuff proudly. Thank you very much. I just want you to know that. All right, I wear mine proudly. I ain't scared. Okay, I ain't scared. All right. Our sneak peek for this week was Delivering the Stars, and I know this brought a smile to your face because I know you see nothing but RSI designs written all over this. And so, you know, we saw that, I think it was last week or week before, I think it was week before, because last week was Delving. So week before that, there was these inklings of this possibly being a lead into the Hermes. And there's been, obviously there were leaks and things talking about it was a variant of the Apollo. My question to you is, do you feel it's a variant of the Apollo, or do you think it's a different spin on its own? What are your thoughts, Mr. RSI? I know you can't give any company secrets away, but if you'd like to share anything, we'd love to hear it.
Well, our good friend, the blessed Jared Huckabee, already gave it away in that if you look very closely at the Inside Star Citizen that we got, when they talk about the Hermes, there's a small ship flying away from us off into the distance, and it looked just like an Apollo. So if that's the Hermes, then it does look like the Apollo. If this interior is the Hermes, then I can see how it is an iterative variant of the Apollo.
Okay.
What it actually does, looks like it's cargo. Delivering the Stars sounds like cargo. We'll see. But yes, it's right, moral, just, and the correct thing in this universe for another RSI ship to be coming into our midst. I'm very excited about that. I have no idea whether I'll ultimately own it because, a lot of things, it depends on a lot of things. And, when you look at the behind the ships for the Apollo, you understand, and this will apply to the Hermes too, I think, you understand that that's sort of a modernized take on the old RSI designs that come from the Aurora and the Constellation, whereas Zeus, Polaris, Perseus are more the arrow-shaped designs. That's sort of RSI brand level 2, right? And I am more into those than I am into the old designs. The Constellation notwithstanding, the Constellation is my exception.
Right. Well, okay, let me ask you, where does this ship land then? Because if you start talking about cargo, and there were some people who were wondering whether there was going to be some aspect of data running or something. And I'm not saying that that's not the case. I have no idea what the ship is going to be. Cargo is defined by a lot of people of thinking like trading stuff you're going to carry. But when you mention ships like the Perseus or the Polaris, and they've got these cargo areas, CIG has kind of given us this implied or told us that those cargo decks are actually going to be there for supplies, for ammunitions and medical supplies, things like that, the things that you need to sustain yourself and operate in space, not cargo in the sense of I'm grabbing some stuff to haul or I've looted some stuff per se, right? Not that you can't put some things in there, but I'm saying there's going to be a certain aspect of that area that's dedicated toward sustenance of your ship and existing in space, right? So if you look at the cargo ships that RSI has currently, you know, we can talk about the, you know, the Connie series, obviously. We can even talk about the Salvation, right? It starts with the Salvation, with that ship being able to hold, I think, like 6 SCU on it or something like that. And then you get the Connies at 96. You get the Taurus that goes, what, at 180 or something like that, SCU. And then after that, there really isn't anything RSI that gets between the 400 to 200 mark. Is that correct? I'm not talking about the Perseus. I'm not talking about those combat ships. There really isn't an RSI cargo ship, is there?
No, not a dedicated freighter. No.
Okay. You think that this is going to land somewhere in that area to compete with things like the Max, the Freelancer Max, and maybe even the Hull B? The Hull B is going to be higher now. I forgot that even grew. What's the alien ship? The Star.
The Raylan.
The Raylan. Yeah. Do you think this? Well, Raylan's at 600. That's big. So
yeah, I don't think it's going to compete with that, but I do think it'll be the next step up.
196. Thanks, Hobo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be like somewhere between 196 and 300.
Okay. Because we don't have a lot of ships that are dedicated in that pocket area. We've got certain ships that can carry it, but like the Reclaimer and the Starfarer, but they're dedicated. You know what I mean? They're other ships, right? Nothing cargo.
Yeah. And you know, it's been asked in the chat. You know, what does it mean? Essential Asa asked in the chat, what did they do with the side rooms? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, because for me, a corollary to that question is, how will you get cargo on and off this ship? Because if it's through that narrow back door that they have on the Apollo, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me as a cargo ship, right?
Maybe it's that hatch that the drone was supposed to fall out of, maybe. Huh?
Oh, Lord.
Maybe.
You're poking the bear with that.
Well, you know,
Maybe.
I did see some weird drawing with something that came in from the top, but that just seemed impractical. I don't know how that would work on a ship like that. But you're right.
It'll be interesting to see.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And we'll find out next week, actually.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if those doors opened up sideways. I don't know, because that ship has a low profile. The Apollo series is a low ship. Those side panels back there in the back could like do like that, but I don't know. We'll see. Like, it's only going to be a week from now. You're right. Why guess, right? Just wait till next week. Okay. We got a couple more items here, and we're going to go. Oh boy, yeah, we're almost at the top of the hour. We got to get ready to do our commercial and get ready and get to the rest of the show. But we're going to hit two things real quick. Last week, there was a video that was put out by a name that has become more and more said in our community, and that's Sylvan. Sylvan Howe, who has been working on the VR aspects of the game. He and his team of people that have been working alongside him. He was at, I think it was CES. And anyway, yeah, he was at CES. I know he was at CES. I think we talked about that. But there was some video of him at CES talking about Star Citizen in VR and some of the features that he would like to see upcoming into it. So for those of you who are into VR, this will be interesting to you. For those of you who aren't into VR, but you want to know who Sylvan is and hear what he has to say about it, this is going to be the opportunity to do that. So let's take a quick look at that real fast, and we'll get this. This is a very short video, like less than 5 minutes, I think.
And I'm pretty sure this year we can add foveated rendering, the quad views, and that's gonna be even more amazing. I think these are the best lenses I've seen so far. Amazing flags, detail. Oh, I really want to see Star Citizen with this headset.
So Sylvan, great to meet you finally.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah, how are you enjoying CES so far?
It's absolutely incredible what you can see here, all the new technology, and you know, I'm always a firm believer in VR and seeing the dream come true for so many people. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same. And I also feel it's like an honor to having you here actually. Now when Star Citizen is becoming so, I mean, it's a huge game for like, what is it, like 15 years or something now? But now it's more popular than ever because you just added VR support, which I think is just amazing. I was just about to ask, like on a personal level, like for you, what's the thrill about Star Citizen for you, like personally? Like what excites you the most, basically?
Just the technology itself, like being able to fly through a giant universe, landing on a planet all seamless without loading screen, going in your incredibly detailed spaceships, over 100, and just seeing everything, especially in VR up close. There's nothing like it. Like the immersion is like out of this world.
Yeah, that was my next question actually. Like, what did you have to change in the game to actually make it run in VR? I mean, there's got to be something like to get the performance, like acceptable performance, which it has by now. So there's some magic behind it, I guess.
Well, here's the thing. So last year was like the year of playability for Star Citizen. That was our main narrative, and we really went for that. So we made sure that the game runs better than ever before, and it does.
Yeah.
Like it has the least bugs like it had ever had, and people are playing it the most like ever, which is absolutely amazing. And it's like last year was like the tipping point for Star Citizen, in that so much technology came together. Like a couple of years prior to that, we rewrote the entire graphics engine.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Vulkan and very modern, clean, and very, very fast and efficient. So that basically allowed me to add VR without any overhead. Like you have literally no CPU overhead, and GPU, I mean, we can just use DLSS if your GPU is struggling, but it runs.
Yeah.
Especially with the Pimax headsets, or in general every headset which has like a super high resolution.
Yeah.
And in OLED, of course, very important for like space games with True Blacks.
True Blacks, yeah.
The amount of detail you can observe is crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure this year we can add foveated rendering, the quad views.
Oh,
and that's gonna be even more amazing and even faster. So,
I was just about to ask, like, what's ahead on the roadmap, and now you just told me. Is there anything else besides like dynamic foveated rendering and quad views?
Well, I've been saying it multiple times. I want to have Ready Player One in Star Citizen, and I'm 100% convinced that it's going to be the closest which comes to a Ready Player One experience. So with like haptics to treadmill, motion control, the full body tracking, and like face and eye tracking. And I mean, we already have like VoIP, like face over IP. So I don't think it's actually going to be so much work to add like face and eye tracking, because we already have so much advanced technology in our engine and in the game.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah. So they did a lot of pretty smart decisions, which works just natively well in VR.
So as a last question, I would say, like, maybe I asked that before, but what kind of person would you recommend the Star Citizen for?
Everyone who wants to become a real space explorer.
A real space explorer.
100%. I mean, we're at a time now, we're probably too young to become real space explorers, but at least we can do it virtually.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of VR, especially now also.
I'm looking forward what you can come up with in the future as well. I mean, headsets are already incredible, so from here on out, it only gets better.
Thank you so much again. Sylvan,
Pleasure
great job.
mine.
Really great work. And our entire Pimax community are saying thank you to you and your entire crew, of course.
But yeah, if you haven't tried out Star Citizen, please do. It's an incredible experience, especially with the Pimax headset. I can wholeheartedly recommend it.
I couldn't have said it better. See you guys.
And I'm pretty
Okay. Alrighty, that's Sylvan. I know, Sirius, you're playing on the Quest 3. I'm playing on a Quest 2. And I went and did some tweaking last week, and I was like, wow, even the tweaking I did, it was like, wow, it was so much better. I've learned some things about my VR thing that I didn't know before either. This has kind of forced me to learn a little bit more of things that you can do to make things better. So I've learned some things. How are you feeling about the progress that you've seen? I don't know how much you've been in here recently since we talked last time, but have you been in recently? Have you noticed any changes? I know there have been updates that have been coming out from Sylvan and the team for VR.
Yeah, I have not been in for the latest iteration of the tweaks.
Okay.
And following, but I just want to talk really quickly about Sylvan,
Mm-hmm.
and for us to just understand who this guy is. Um, Sylvan joined CIG 8 years ago, and part of the reason that I think CIG brought him on board was the work that he had done in his bachelor thesis, in his spare time, which is how a lot of this VR stuff got done for us,
Mm-hmm.
and in his master's around the Vulkan API and virtual reality, right? So Sylvan's the kind of dude who, you might walk by him and he'd be like, you need to Google me, right? you need to look at Sylvan's LinkedIn, because he was building games in 3D in 2015. He was writing graphics engines from scratch in CC+, and he developed an API independent graphics engine for Direct 3D and for Vulkan with a focus on virtual reality in the months prior to being hired by CIG, right? So he
What'd you
brought
do?
a very specific VR Vulkan skill set to CIG, and leading edge, right? Leading edge in that. So he gets here, and what does he start working on? He starts working on the Gen 12 renderer, right? And that architecture, because we can't do anything that we want to do with Vulkan and then with VR without the Gen 12 renderer working correctly, right? And so just very excited to have him on the team, and having the commitment. You can hear it in his voice. His ultimate commitment over the long term is to get us in the Oasis and Ready Player One, right? Star Citizen, interestingly enough for us and for him, is the closest thing out here in the world to that, right? And so he's here with us, been here again for 7 to 8 years, and working on this stuff. And now I was worried when he had his own Discord where he was talking about working on this stuff, and then that Discord shut down about 6 months to 8 months before we ended up getting experimental VR in the game. And he was saying nothing about that. And I was worried that CIG was like, we're not going to go in this direction, just shut it down. But instead, what it meant was we were getting ready to roll it out even though experimental is still an official feature, right? And the questions that the Pimax guy was asking about, how did you get it to do what it's doing and still maintain frame rate, were some of the concerns. If you all were able to watch the Quantum Vegas 2955 video that Sean Tracy expressed in getting it to be a feature in Star Citizen, right? So just real kudos to Sylvan and the team that worked on that, because even though I haven't seen the most recent tweaks to VR, the first few times I went in, it's a transformative experience, and they have made that happen. So just very excited about where this is going to go. My guess is it'll only get better, and more integrated, and sometimes it's a step back to take 2 steps forward, but for the most part it'll only get better, and that's just exciting for all of us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited as well. Again, this was at CES that Sylvan had an opportunity to go out, and again, I guess this also, to your point, shows CIG's both direction and commitment to VR. VR was mentioned in the earliest days of development, back
Yes.
when we had the developer version of the what was it called, the DF1, whatever it was, of the VR,
the
back
Oculus.
in the day, the Oculus, yeah, the old kit days,
the development
and
kit,
and years later now, we're the technology is there, and it's funny, we've had people in our community for years who have made VR work in Star Citizen. Folks, I remember back even when we first had Arena Commander, there were people out in Arena Commander doing VR. But it was a lot to make it work in the game. But now we actually have it built into the game. And again, if you haven't had an opportunity to try it out, if you got a friend who has it, someone you know, I think it is something that you should take just have an opportunity to take a look at. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money to experience VR. And so we'll see how this continues to develop out and thing. Stephen Young, thank you so much for that sub. Welcome, welcome, and thank you, thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you. Last but not least, and like I said, we got to speed up our time here a little bit. Yesterday was the Daymar Rally. For those of you who got a chance to watch, I got to watch for about maybe 2 or 3 hours yesterday, and I had to leave and I couldn't finish. I know that it was a very long day for them, but did you get a chance to tune in at all, Serious, for the Daymar Rally at all this year?
Yeah, the camera work was better than ever, and the camera work every year is getting better and better. But the camera work was incredible. They were following folks, and then following them all the way into the window, into the checkpoint base.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and watching them check in the window, and then watching them leave and come and zooming back out. So I was very impressed this year.
Yeah, it was great. Special thanks to Corsair, who was was the founder of getting this whole thing going with Atmo Esports, and then of course Crucian, Detox, some of the folks who hosted yesterday. It is no small task to try to make something exciting when there's nothing exciting going on. These folks have to kind of keep our attention while they're prepping and getting things ready, both for this, as far as the servers go, as far as the racers go. And really kind of give a very genuine presentation of that event. And it's no small task for them to do that. This is their annual race, the very first one that they started. They've got several races now that take place in the universe, but this one, of course, is like their keystone one that they've done for many years. I think this is their 8th year doing the Daymar Rally, and so. Kudos to them once again. Thank you guys, and those who helped, everybody, all the volunteers, all the people that supported them. And of course, if you got a chance to tune in, if you didn't get to watch it, their video is on YouTube. I don't know who won because I didn't see the ending and I was gone all day today. So I don't know who the winners were. But congratulations to those of you who put in the time. People don't know. People spend literally weeks, if not months, preparing for this race. And it's always amazing to know that people do all that preparation. And then when you see somebody wipe out, it's like, oh God, after all this time of preparation. Sometimes folks they don't make it through the race. We've actually had people, remember there were people who actually ran to the finish line, like they literally ran. I think like there was
just got out and started running.
Just started running to get to the end. I can't remember. There was like I forget what the record was, but I think somebody ran like it was like an 11-hour race when it was all said and done. It was some like crazy amount of time because they didn't have their vehicles, so they just ran the rest of the way. But anyway, that's that. All right. Well, we are going to get ready to take our break. And when we come back from our break, we're going to go ahead and jump into our topic today, Star Citizens board gamers. So as you guys know, we're going to take our commercial break. Then we're going to take like a 4-minute break so we can take a break and get something to drink. You guys can take a break, get something to drink, get some snacks, and then we'll be right back with the rest of the show. So we'll be back. We'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you guys for being here with us, and see you in a few minutes.